Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Mike Brown from Iowa Western. Welcome, Coach.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here, especially as you know we're talking here mid-November, and luckily, I'm thinking your season's still going, huh?
Yep. We just won the district championship the other day. So we'll be heading off to Florida on Wednesday.
Awesome. Congratulations. I know that, well, the results of that will be all done and dusted by the time this goes live, but congrats on that. Um, yeah, I'm looking here. You guys are ranked number two men's Division I junior college program in the country. I guess the biggest question mark I think that I have is how do you pronounce your mascot?
Called a Reaver. So
Reaver.
it's
Okay.
actually yeah, it's a Reaver. It's a river pirate. So it kind of goes back towards like 18th century way back in the day from there. So
Love it. Love it. Well, you know, sometimes you see these mascots, you're like, I'm not sure what that is. So I appreciate the pronunciation. But I mean, I know it's tough because you're still, you know, you're still fighting in the tournament and your season's still going. So as a junior college, especially since you got to replenish that roster twice as much as everybody else, how much recruiting is happening during the season? You know, I mean, what percentage would you say is spent on recruiting versus just the day-to-day of the season in your program?
um, I think we have a very short window with our guys. And so I try actually not to spend a lot of time in season recruiting. I try to really put a lot of my time individually onto more of the players we have in front of us. I think with how we recruit, we recruit a lot of kids that are trying to go professional at the moment and school hasn't worked out for. And so we usually, our recruiting ramps up anywhere from probably, I would say, December to even June, July. It's a pretty extensive, I would say from that then.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Especially, I mean, when you look at your roster, you have I'd say a pretty healthy international flavor in there, and I know those tend to recruit later in the calendar year, right?
We do, but I mean, I will tell you, like, I like recruiting kids from the United States. I think if you were to look at our roster comparison to most junior college rosters, we probably have a lot more kids from the United States. In fact, I mean, we've got two local products probably in our starting lineup right now. I think for us, it's more about finding elite people. It doesn't really matter where they come from. We just want to find the right people.
Yeah, that's great. So when it comes to recruiting domestically, where are you finding those kids? What events are you going to? How does that work for you guys?
This year we actually found some guys from the MLS Next Pro. Just our contacts with MLS clubs that we have. We've been very fortunate in the past few years where we've had a few guys drafted, and I think through that, a lot of the MLS clubs have started to develop a greater respect for us, and just our pathway and what it presents. And so with that, we've done that. Some of the MLS Next events, we try to do a lot of local ECNL events. We from there. And then we use our camps. Our camps are a big thing, especially for anyone local. We really won't recruit any local kids unless we can have them at our camps and work with them and really spend a lot of time with them. We try to keep our camps only cost $50 for like the ID camps. We try to keep it very cheap just so we can make sure we're getting we don't want anyone to be financially, burdened from there.
No, that's great. Well, whether it's through ECNL or an MLS Next Pro event or your camps, kind of what makes up that hierarchy of things you're looking for in a player, both on and off the field?
I think for us, really, it comes down to is like we've really over the last 2 years zeroed in on the person even more, and really just got into finding the right type of characteristics in people that we think fit what we're looking for, and then from there we try to zero out, okay, are they good enough? But I think sometimes when you look at the talent first, in terms of like what a player can do on the field, you might fool yourself in terms of their character a little bit as a coach. And so we try to look at the character first and we want guys that are elite competitors. We want guys that are tough, gritty, just kind of that, guys that are adaptable, they have intelligence, socially on the field, things like that. And then we want leaders. It's a big thing for us. We look for a lot of guys who are captains and leaders of their teams and things like that, because that usually represents a high end character type guy from there. Doesn't mean always, but I think for us, like we try to find those type of people because they seem to do well in the type of environment we've created here.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, one of the things, with the junior college system is a lot of guys are focused on, where they go next. Talk to me about how you guys have been successful in moving on the players that want to play at the next level, whether that's college or pro.
I mean, that's our first job is to move guys on. And so I try to make that clear to every guy when they come in here. My first job is to move them on, but my primary job really in the end is to make sure they're successful once they leave us. So I think, whether that is in 6 months or whether that is in a year or that is in 18 months or 2 years, or, we even have some guys that redshirt their first year and they're finishing their third year here. It's whatever is best for that individual, and everyone has their own journey. Roman Torres came here for a year, then went to Crane for a semester, and he was drafted. Moyes was here for 2 years and he drafted. Like it's all variety from there. It's about what's best for that individual. And I think, luckily I coached in Division 1 for a few years. And so like I've seen both sides of the table. And I think a lot of schools have a lot of respect for what we're trying to play here, what we're trying to do here. We play in the spring and fall preseason. We'll play a lot of Division 1s. We go and play MLS Next Pro teams. So our guys are constantly being exposed to that level and being pushed to those type of heights. And, I think for me, that's something that's really important. I think it gives four-year schools and professional coaches an ability to see where our guys stack against that level from there. And I think that helps in the recruitment process.
Okay. Well, one of the, a lot of times the reason that, someone chooses a two-year school is for the financial aspect. It can save them a lot of money. I'm not holding you to hard numbers here, but can you just walk me through what a prospect coming to Iowa Western might be looking at in terms of what the cost is and what the housing situation
Yep.
is there, et cetera?
So room, books, meals, tuition, everything, you're looking around 12 to 13K. And that's unlimited meals, everything. It's a really I wish I knew about this type of situation when I was coming out. I went to an NAI, I went thousands of dollars in debt. I'm still paying to this day. I think for what we have in terms of facilities, structure, setup, environment, all those things, I think we definitely get the biggest bang for your buck, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the school. You've been there a few years. Kind of what have you found that's awesome about the schools? What stands out? Maybe some things we wouldn't even know by going through the website.
You know, everyone wants you to be successful here. And I remember in 2023, we had a down year. We were 6-4-4. We finished ninth in the country, which is a great year for a lot of programs. And I felt, everyone around me was winning a national championship or something, and we felt kind of left out of the party. But it was just kind of cool because there was a lot of support though. Like, hey, it's a down year, but we know you guys, we know how you do things. And you could just see a lot of support. And then last year we won the national championship. I think for me, it's just a special place. It's a very unique place. And I think it's a place that I don't know if I could ever see myself leaving, because you can have success and there's great people here and there's a purpose where you can make just an impact on kids' lives that's much different than you would maybe at four-year school. And then, I think for me, just the location too, like we get the best of both worlds. We're right outside Omaha, about 10 minutes away, but we're also a little bit disconnected. So you get kind of that small town, big city feel. And so, which I think is great in regards to that.
Oh, that's great. Well, with kids coming internationally, kids coming from all over the country to play for you, um, 'cause balancing the demands of a high level soccer program plus going to school can be tough. Kind of what support systems are in place there to help students be successful both on and off the field?
So, I mean, a few things. I think our structure, we try to structure our day-to-day, our environment, very much, I would say, like a elite environment, elite academy, professional team. And so, our guys, they have breakfast club every morning at 8 a.m. So, I think that's a big barrier for a lot of kids just when they're in college, just getting out of bed, and just getting the class and doing those things. So we've got breakfast club, and then right after that, they'll have a team meeting, then they'll have weights. And then, then you have training and then you go to classes. So you're already up moving for the day and going on there. So if you're not going to class, you're making that choice on your own, and there's a problem there. Um, tutoring is free. I think, the teacher ratio is about like 12 to 1, or something like that. So I mean, you're not really in a class with 500 people or anything like that. Like the classes are fairly small. Your teachers know you. We have a high standards in terms of academically. We do grade checks every 2 weeks. If you get one grade below C, like you're not playing. And I don't care if you're the best player in the world or not. Like we try to really recruit a team where there's 3 to 4 great players at every position. So you're constantly held accountable in that way because of that. I think, another thing is just, I think we care, we legit care about these guys. My wife, she does volunteers, does academic planning for guys that we feel could be at risk in their first year, just helping and it's not like tutoring, it's more like just planning and giving them like a planner and helping them kind of plan out their week and what assignments they need to do within balance of soccer and all that. And then we've got curfew every night at 10 p.m. So I mean, we keep a pretty regimented structure in terms of what they're doing with their day. Where I think, some guys, when they leave here, they're like, oh, sweet freedom. But I know from talking to a lot of them, they find themselves wanting to come back to these type of habits because of how they felt about themselves and how they felt about their day. So, yeah.
Great. Well, I mean, you kind of talked about it a little bit, but you know, take us back maybe a couple weeks. You're finishing up the regular season. Kind of what does a typical week look like in terms of schedule with game cadence and all those things? Besides what I know you just told us a little bit.
It's kind of hard now, I would say, with us, because we have a conference that consists of 2 teams. And
Oh, okay.
so we take whatever games we can get. And so sometimes our game schedule is all over the place. And we try to schedule the toughest schedule we can every year because we want to really challenge our guys and prepare them for the next level. Um, so like the week can vary. We try to keep the days pretty regimented and structured, but like, if you have a game, you could be on the road, with JUCO, we don't really have the budget to go the night before. And so, and even a place like us, we try to, preserve our funds and use our funds in other areas. And I think with that, what we see is like we'll be traveling the day of. And so that's a bit of adjustment for some guys sometimes. But, I think most part, like your day is going to normally look that. Just the week will depend on what games you have and things and how it fits within the schedule from there.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the team. Is there a roster size that you find is ideal that you're trying to hit each year?
We have two kind of teams that operate under the umbrella of our program. We have our first team and then we have our gap year program. Our gap year program we use strictly as kind of like a developmental program. We don't like having those guys play JV games just to lose a year of eligibility. A lot of schools are very enrollment driven, and we choose not to do that. We try to use it as more of a developmental thing in that regard. And then we have our first team. And so each team probably consists of about 38 to 40 players at a time. That number will vary based off academic suspensions, injuries, and things like that from there. But, we try to keep the numbers high to help players be held accountable from there.
Okay. Well, what about the rest of the roster, the staff? How many folks do you have on staff? What are some of
So I've
what roles
got
do they play? Yeah.
Yeah, so I have my associate head coach, Caesar Herrera. He used to be assistant at Division 1. He chose to come back here. He was the assistant here for a little bit. We had an opportunity when one of my other assistants took a D1 job to kind of create a position for him that I think was really good for him and his family. Then we have 2 other assistants. Roberto Hernandez, he's a former player of mine. He he lives in the dorms, and then our assistant Anthony Galena that lives in the dorms as well. And then we have a goalkeeper coach, and then we have another sports performance guy that he focuses. He's not like most schools. I think you have like a weights coach or the head coach does the weights or things like that. And if that weights coach sometimes plays football or baseball or something like that, we've got an actual soccer guy. So that really, I think, for us separates us. He does a lot of things that they're doing at the professional level. He helps with recovery rehab. This year we've been hit by the injury bug a little bit, but the thing about him is he's really great at like reducing the injury time and getting guys back and return to play in the right time for them.
Okay. Well, what about you? Talk to us about your coaching style and the style of play you like to play there.
I think for me it all revolves around I want my guys to be successful when they leave us. Like that's the most important thing. And so everything and how I coach, how I treat them, how we play, it all is based off that. Um, I'm a very hard coach to play for. I think the demands I place on guys are extreme, sometimes unreal, but I love my guys like my sons, and I would do anything for them. And it's especially with this team right now, I think there's definitely this team this year, we've grown through a lot and have to go through a lot of tough situations and kind of seeing us win the other night for me was a very full circle moment. I was very proud of this group and just proud of kind of, I think, the health of our program at the moment in that regard. In terms of playing style, if you look, I built our playing style based off what I see in the Division I levels and what I see in the USL and MLS levels. And those levels are very athletic. They're very fast paced. The ball's on the ground. It will be in there at some points, but it's played fast and everything's going forward. And there's a lot of emphasis on the transition moments. And so we try to create that style so to better prepare our guys when they get to the next level that they're not being behind in any means by that.
Makes sense. Um, well, obviously you got a lot of time focused in the fall and you're still going, which is great, but talk to me about the spring and that, non-traditional season. What are you guys doing usually then?
To be honest, like our spring season is probably a little bit harder than our fall because we don't have the game days, we don't have the off, and we go hard in training. I mean, we'll have 4 to 6 games, without we try to play professional teams, Division I teams, things like that. But for the most part, I would tell you, like, I mean, we go hard. Like we're trying to really, we have till February 1 where we have 8 hours, but then after that, I mean, it's basically another season, for guys. We really, I think this year I want us to focus a little bit more on individual development of players, but I mean, we try to really create a group and a cohesive group that we can build on for next fall. It was a little bit tricky last spring for us just because, we had a lot of sophomores the year before. And so we were trying to figure out what we could build on where I feel like this year we have a lot of sophomores going to the spring. And so we're going to try to build a group for next fall from there.
Okay. Well, Coach, I really appreciate the insights. I'm going to leave you with one last question, and that
Yep.
is, if you had any advice for, a young man going through this college recruiting process right now, what would that be?
Find what's right for you. I think there's a lot of different pathways, a lot of different opportunities. I think be really true to yourself, and who you are and what you want out of your college experience. I think there's a lot of kids out there, they say they want one thing and they may want it just for the external status or they can post on social media or all that. I think there's a program out there for everyone. You just need to be real yourself and honest about what you're looking for in your college experience. And that's why I try to tell every kid, I try to lay it bluntly what we are, because I want people that are here for the right reasons. And I think every coach does. And every program has different niches and things that make them right for that individual. So you just have to kind of find that from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Well, Coach, wish you the best of luck as you try
You
to get
bet.
that repeat. And
Sounds good.
if you find yourself down in Bradenton for any of those tournaments, give me a shout, all right?
Okay. Sounds good. Take care. Thank
Hey,
you.
thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.